Hi there, welcome to Code with Daniel. In this video today, we're going to create a beautiful login page and sign up page using Clerk authentication. We're going to learn how to implement Clerk authentication inside your project. We're going to learn also how to implement custom protected routes and unprotected routes, whereby one can also sign in using a username, or we can even sign up using Google or Facebook. We're going to learn all the basics of Clerk. We're also going to learn how we can fetch user data. For example, the name, the last name, and all his names. We're also going to learn how to install Clerk and use it within your application. If I click sign up here, we can use our email, or we can even provide a username. For example, I can provide my username as Daniel, and you can also provide our email. After providing our email, we have this pop-up with input where we can add the token that we have received or the code that we have received. When we check our email, we can see we have the code generated here. So we can copy this code and then paste it inside our browser, and this should authenticate us. After logged in, we can see this is our name is Daniel, and when we click here, we can see we have a user button, and we can also manage the account, and we can also sign out. Inside manage account, when we click manage account, we can update our username. For example, I can change it to Danny and then click save. And if the name is taken, we have this notification, the name is taken. Therefore, I can just add a single Y here, and then we can click save. Great, and this should update our username. And we can see when we click this button, we can see our username has changed to Danny. Let us see what more can we do. When we click manage account, we can also manage our profile. We can upload a profile image, and by selecting the image we want, we can update our profile. Great, and you can just click save. After updating our profile, you can see that our icon has changed, and this is our profile. We are going to learn this all in a single tutorial. Great, let us get started. We'll start off by creating our project folder, and you can name it whatever you want. So I've created mine here. You can do the same, then drag and drop inside your Visual Studio Code. After you do that successfully, then you should see this. Great, you should see the name of your folder inside Visual Studio Code. Next, you just want to install Next.js by using this command, npx create next-app@latest space and then dot. Then you can press enter. I have done those steps for you, but the key thing you have to ensure is that you select TypeScript, but everything else leave it as default. Great, after successful installation, you should see a project like this, like the one we have here. So what you want to do is that you can go inside the project folder, then inside the app folder, then inside page.tsx. You should see a bunch of code, but what you want to do is collapse this div, and then you can just delete the div. And then we can write our own div like this. Great, and you can just have a h3 inside, and we can say Clerk. We are learning Clerk or Clerk demo, Clerk auth demo. Great, Clerk auth demo, which is great. You delete anything else. For example, we had an image here, you can just delete it, and that is what we have just done. And we can just run our server, npm run dev. Great, you should see this. Our server is running on localhost 3000. You can just click it, or you can copy it and then go to your browser, and you should see the project. After navigating to our localhost 3000, you should just see this message, Clerk auth demo. Let me zoom it for you, but let us give it a little bit of style so that it can become more beautiful. Inside this h3, you can give it a class name, and I'll be using Tailwind text 3XL so that it can become large, and also we can give it a color. For example, I can give it text green, and we can select a value here. So I'm just going to select 600. And after saving, when we navigate back to a browser, we should see this. Great, we have the text in green color, Clerk auth demo. Great. The next step, we just need to go to Clerk documentation. We can just search, we can open a new tab and search for Clerk. You should select the first one here, then click on it. The first thing is, if you have an account, you can just sign in, but if you do not, then you need to create a new account. So we'll proceed by clicking sign in. When we click this sign in button, you should see this Clerk auth here. So if you do not have an account, you can just click sign up. But if you have an account, then you can proceed with, okay, Google or GitHub. Great. I'm going to proceed with Google. Great. You can see I have already. So if you had not tried Clerk before, your dashboard should be empty. Now, for me, I had already tried Clerk before, and you can just click here and we can see the projects that I've tried. Okay, we need to create a new application. Just click here on create new application or create application, and we can give our application a name. And then I'm just going to name it using my channel's name. So I'm going to name it Code with Daniel. Like this, no spaces, no hyphens, just Code with Daniel. You can give it a name that suits you. Then the next thing we have to select is our sign-in options. Now we have email. I think I can zoom this a bit so that it can become more clear. We have email. We also have phone number. We have username. We have Google, Facebook, and all this. Therefore, you can select whatever suits you, but just remember, phone number is not on a free tier, so we need to select something else. But everything else you can use it. Therefore, I'm just going to select username, and you can see automatically on this dashboard here, we can see we have a username, email or username around here. So anything that we add here will reflect here, and this is how our application should look like. Great. Let us proceed next. We have Facebook. If I enable Facebook, great. You can also see Facebook here. Now, let's say I want to also enable Apple. You can see also Apple. We have Apple here. What about all these other accounts? We can enable LinkedIn. Great, and you can see it here. But I don't think you need all of this. You just need a few of them. But we have a message here. Upgrade to Pro after creating your application to enable more providers. Now, if you want more providers, you need to upgrade to Pro. But for this case, let me just minimize it to have the bare minimum. If I'm just going to remove this, and we can leave Facebook and Google, okay, and the username. After that, we can just click create application. If you have done that, congratulations, we have just created our new app. Great. And we need to select our framework. Our framework is Next.js. So by default, Next.js is selected, but you can see we have a whole lot of frameworks that are supported. Now, since Next.js is selected by default, we can go to the steps that are provided. We have a couple of steps, but I'm going to show you all these steps, and it's super easy. We're going to secure this authentication within minutes. Great. The first step is just to install Next.js. We are using npm. We can just copy this command here. We're going to click this command. Then inside our terminal, we can open a new terminal. We can leave this one running. Great. And you can just paste the command npm install at Clerk/Next.js. Great. We have just completed step 1. Let us go back and look at step 2. Step 2, we have to set our environment variables. Okay, before we copy these environment variables, we need to go back to application, and you can just hover around this empty space here and then right click, and we're going to create a new folder, and you can just name it .env. Not a new folder, but a new file. Great. So let me just do it again. Right click and then new file .env. Great. Success, we have already created a new file .env. This file is going to store our environment variables. Next, we just need to copy these environment variables. These are specific to your application. Now, you can click this eye icon here to see your keys. For example, if I click it, I can see the keys. Okay, and then we need to click here, copy, so that we can copy in our application. So we'll come back and then just paste it here. Okay, great. And we have completed the second step. Let us go to the third step. The third step it's actually also pretty easy. We need to create a middleware.ts since we're using TypeScript. Therefore, we'll just come back to application and then right click around the same place here so that to ensure the project is created outside the app folder. Then you're going to create new file and we can name it middleware.ts. And great. Then you can go back and we can just copy the code that you have been given here. So we need to copy this code, this one here. So we can just copy this code here and then navigate back to our project and paste the code for middleware. Great. Let us go back again so that we can look at step number 4. Step number 4 is to add a Clerk provider to your app. We're using app router, therefore by default it's app router. And this is what we just need to do. We're importing Clerk provider, sign in by button, sign in, sign out, and user button. We're importing all this, and then we are wrapping our application with Clerk provider. So this is the layout.ts. So we can just copy this and then come inside our layout and just come here inside the layout and Control A and Control V. Great. We are done with step 4. So we have imported Clerk at /Next.js and we have wrapped our application using Clerk provider here. Great. Let us look at the last step. The last step is actually just to run our application, of which we have done that. Let us look at it and see what is happening. When you look at your application, we have this route, sign in. So when we click sign in, great, we have this, sign in to Code with Daniel. This is our application, and we can sign in using Facebook or Google, or even an email address or a username. If we do not have an account, we can click sign up here. So we have this sign up form. But in production, let me show you the better way of implementing this in production level. Let us go back to Clerk. And we are interested with this. So at the moment, we have successfully implemented our sign in and sign up button, but this is not it. We need to use custom routes, because in your application you'll be using custom sign in and custom sign out routes. Therefore, let's go back to our documentation and just you can go back and see. Great. When we move down after running our application, this is the most important part of this tutorial. So we need to continue to Next.js guide so that we can utilize our own pages for authentication. Now you just need to click here and it should take you to this page. So in this page, you're going to learn how to build our own sign in or sign up pages for our Next.js app with Clerk. Great. Let us go and have a look on the steps. Therefore, I'm just going to do a cleanup on our project before doing this. Therefore, I'll just go back to application. I think you can delete all this. Just going to delete this and remain our application with just a bare minimum. After cleaning up your layout, you should have something like this. Just clean, nothing more, not anything associated with Clerk. We just have this function here, the body and the children. Great. Now the next in these steps, we're going to understand clearly whatever we're importing here. That one was just a demonstration to get you quick, but let us dive deep and see everything that we need to know. Let us go back to our documentation and see what we need to do. So for our custom sign in or sign up page, you need to do the following. Inside the app folder, we need to create another folder called sign-in. And then we need to create an optional dynamic route or optional dynamic folder, and we're going to call it sign-in. Great. Let us do that. So we're going to come here inside the app folder. We're going to create a new folder and we're going to name it sign-in. Great. And inside, okay, nested inside, we have another folder. So we right click on it and then another folder. So the first square brackets are to show that the folder is dynamic. And then when we put another bracket inside, we mean that it is going to be an optionally catch all routes. So, and then inside it just 3 dots, then sign-in. Great. If ensure it looks like this, then inside it you can create a new file and just name it page.tsx. Great. And then we can just create a format of a function. But before we create this function, allow me to explain what this dynamic folder does. So we have, normally when you have a folder with square brackets, it means it is a dynamic folder. For example, you can have posts. Let's say you have a page with posts, and then inside it you can just pass the ID. So ID in Next.js, sometimes they can use a term like slug to just show a dynamic segment. So when you see slug, do not be scared. It's just an ID or a section of a dynamic segment. For instance, if we have posts, the post, we have an ID of 1. So this part is what is going to represent that one, or an ID of 2. Great. But when we do this, and then another square bracket inside, and then we can spread the 3 dots and then do just sign in. What this means, we're going to optionally catch all routes. So for example, we have sign in / user sign in. Okay. Then we have another one. Okay, this is just for demonstration purpose. For example, if you have sign in / user, sign in / guest, or sign in / clerk, or any of these. So this one is going to optionally catch all the routes. So it's going to optionally. So whenever we call any of this function, then this dynamic folder or optionally catching all the routes should catch the routes that you have called. Great. I hope you have understood, and let us proceed further. Now we have just created our sign in button with a page.tsx, an empty page.tsx. We can do the same for sign up, but let us finish first our sign in. We'll go back to our documentation, and you can see what you need to do. We just need to import sign in. We have done these steps. We just need to import sign in and return sign in. Great. And that's what you're going to do. You just come in our application and import, and just import sign in. And you can see we have suggestions here. Therefore, I'm going to accept that. And then we're going to create another function that just returns the sign in. So we'll say export default function page. And inside it, you're going to just return the sign in. Great. And we are done with our sign in route. Now we need just to do the same for sign up. Therefore, come back inside the app folder, and we can create a new folder. Right click on new folder, and you're going to call this one sign-app. Great. Inside our folder sign-app, we're going to create another new folder. This time, first the square brackets, and inside it another square brackets, then a spread operator. So we have the 3 dots, and then we're going to just type sign-app. Great. And then inside it, we need to create a new function. This time we're going to call it, or a new file, this time page.tsx. This is going to be the sign up page. And the function for page.tsx is also similar to this one for sign in, but instead of returning sign in, we're going to return sign up. Great. Let us just do that. We're going to import sign up. So we have a suggestion here. I'm going to accept this one. Great. And then we're going to declare another function, export default function page, that is going to return the sign up. Great. So we have our sign up and our sign in page. Let us look at the next steps. Okay, we have done step 1. Therefore, this one is for assigning our sign in page. We can go to, and we've already created our sign up page. So we need to create another file known as middleware.ts, but we had already created this. So this middleware, what we're going to do, we need to declare a public route. This public route is going to be accessible by anyone. Great. And at the moment, we have just said that our only public route is sign-in. Great. Let me just copy this middleware.ts because we had already created this function here, middleware.ts, but let us update this so that it can include our public routes. Great. The next step is we have to ensure that we have our next public sign-in URL, and then we store it inside our .env. Therefore, you can just copy that and then come back inside the application, inside .env, and then we can just paste the key here. Okay, we can paste the path here. Then let us just go back inside the application and see. Okay, and we need to run our application, but we cannot run our application because we have just set up a sign-in route. But as you have seen, I've been doing some initial setup for the sign-up route. Now we need to complete the custom sign-up page so that it can become a fully functional page. Therefore, I'm going to just come here and we have done this for the sign-up. We have created this function here. And then we just need to update our middleware.ts. One thing you can notice that it's only one line which has changed. We have added our sign up. We need to add our sign up to our public routes. Therefore, you can just copy this and then we can update our middleware.ts. Great. Let us go back to our middleware.ts and we can just update it here. Great. Our middleware.ts now contains sign up and sign in as public routes. Let us go back. Now the next step we need to add, we had already added our sign in path. We need to add our sign up path. Therefore, I'll just click copy here so that I can go inside my .env and I can just overwrite whatever was there. So I'm going to overwrite this so that we can have both sign in and sign up. Great, we have sign in URL and sign up URL. Let us go back and look at the next step. I think we are done, and that is it. We need to actually finish so we can run our application and see. Okay, before we run our application, we need to wrap our application with Clerk provider. Therefore, I'll just go back inside of application, and inside the layout it should be here inside our app. So you can just go here inside layout.tsx, and we need to import Clerk provider. Therefore, you can just import. This time we're importing Clerk provider, and we're importing it from Clerk/Next.js, and we need to wrap our children with it. Therefore, you can just come here and you can call it again Clerk provider, and we're going to wrap everything inside it. Therefore, I'll just cut this children here and put it inside our function here. Great. Now we can run our application. When we run our application, we should see something like this. You sign in to Code with Daniel. This is the name of our application, and we have Facebook and Google. Great. Let us try and sign up using first Google. Therefore, I'm just going to click Google here, and you can see it's running correctly. We can choose our account. I'm going to choose this one here, and then you can click continue to Clerk. Okay, we had set already a username, therefore I'm going just to provide a username, and I can put Daniel and then click continue. Great. After providing our username, we can see we have Clerk auth demo. Great. This is our homepage. Therefore, our homepage is protected. Then we can just go back. I'm going to click back, and then we can try signing up. Before we go back, if we go back inside our dashboard, we can see we already have one user. Okay, and it is a sign up. We have just signed up with one user. So at the moment, we do not have any sign in. So we only have one sign up. Great. Now, how do we read the user data? Because just signing in or signing up is not important if you cannot read the user data. For example, the email and the name. How do we read that? Or even username. So let us go back to our documentation and we can proceed to the next step. So you can come here, how to read a user or session data here. So I'm going to click this. Let us click here on current user. So how do we know the current user? Let us just click here, current user. Great. And you can see this is how we get a current user. We're importing current user from Clerk, and then you're assigning user to the current user. Then we can just return user.firstname. Great. Let us see this. So we can just go back inside our application. Let us import current user. So import current user. From Clerk. Then we need to declare a variable known as user. So you can just come here and say constant user is equal to await current user. But since we are using await, we need to declare our function as asynchronous. So we can just come here and declare export default, then async. And that should fix it. Great. So whenever you're using await means it's going to take some time. You need to declare a function as asynchronous. Below this h3 tag, we can have another div that returns the user data. For example, we can just say hello, and in curly braces, inside the curly braces, you can say user, which is optional. It's not a must we have a user, and then we can, let's say we can just say the first name. So we have hello user dot first name. The question marks means it can either be null, or it can be a null, or we can also have a user. Let us see our application. Great, we have this. Let me zoom it a bit so that it can become clear. We have hello web. This is my username or the first name. Great. Let us see what else we can do with our user. I'll copy this line, and instead of hello, we can add some, first we can add some words and say your first name is, and then great, like that. Then let me just copy this, and we can also see the last name. So you can copy that div. So instead of first, I'm going to change to last name. This is how we extract the user data. So your last name is, and we're going to change this one here. Instead of first name, it's going to be last name. Also, let me zoom this text out so that it can become more clear. So we have the last name property. Let us go inside our application and see. Great, we have our last name is web developers. As you can see, we had already signed up using web developers. Great. Another cool thing you can do is you can introduce a user button. Therefore, let me just import it and we're going to see it. It's a very cool feature. So you can import user button. User button from Clerk Next.js, and just below here we can return our user button. So you can come here, user button. Great, and you can have a look in our application. We're going to click here, just refresh it. Wow, beautiful. We have our user button here, W. Let me just click it and see. When we click our, let me zoom out a bit. Great. When we click our user button, we see this is our full name. We have web developers, and this is our username. What is the username? Username is Daniel. Great. We have this. We can also sign out. We can also manage our account. So this is all properties that user button comes with. So let us click manage account and see. We can add an account, we can update our profile, we can even update our username. For example, let me just update the username. Instead of Daniel, let me change to code with Daniel. Or okay, instead of using the channel name, let me just use something else. And you can use something like just Danny. Great. Danny with a capital D. And let us click save. This should update our information here. Great. We have this, and when we click here, we have the username has changed to Danny. Great. How do we also get this username? Let us go back in application, and we can also, let us just copy this line so that we can console the username. Great. We have this. So instead of the last name is going to be username. Hello, your username is this. So instead of last name property, we're going to change to username. Great. And we can see our username is Danny. We have already changed our username and it should reflect as such. Great. Also here, our username is Danny. Great. Let us go back and see what we can do again with the user data. What about if you want to know the full name? Not only the username or the last name. What about the full name? So the full name is very easy. You can just copy one of these div here, and then you can paste it below here. And instead of hello, your username is, we can change to your full name is. Full name is, and here we are going to change from username to full name. Great. Let us have a look inside our application. Great. We have our full name is web developers. This is very important when you're dealing with server or when you're dealing in your application. You need to know the user data or the user's full name. Finally, let us have a quick look on how to use auth. For example, Clerk provides a way in which we can redirect. For example, we're importing here auth. You can import auth. And also we have the user ID and redirect to sign in. We're all getting all this information from auth. So if you don't have a user ID, we can just redirect to sign in. Great. So this is how you can redirect users if they're not signed in. Now, the next question is, how do you create a protected and unprotected page? By default, when you create any page, it's going to be protected. Let us see that and also learn how to create our own unprotected pages so that they're not protected by this Clerk. Okay, let us go back to application. I'm going to create another folder here inside the app, and this one is just going to be for test purposes. Okay, great. Let me just create a new folder, and I'm going to name it blog. And inside blog, I'm going to create a new folder or a new file, and I'm going to name it page.tsx. And inside it, we can just have a structure or a function, which is export default function page, or we can even call it export default function blog. And inside it, you can just return a div. So we can return a div, and inside the div, it can just be I am blog page. Great. We want to test this one. Is this one publicly accessible? By default, it should be protected. So anything you create is going to be protected. But how do we make it unprotected? I'm just going to show you in a sec. But let me first show you this page is protected. Okay, let's move in application. Now we are already signed in. So it should be available because we are signed in. Okay, great. /blog